When a content creator says something to the effect of, "We fired those rounds off camera," what he's actually trying to tell you is, "I forgot to hit the record button." True story. Hey there, folks. How you doing today? Welcome back to the channel, and please bear with the background racket that you might hear throughout this production. We are on location where life happens. There's stuff going on outside that can be heard in here. Let's not let it stand in the way of the fun that we have in store for you. Out here on the table in front of me, I have something really cool that I'm excited to get to share with you. This was sent to us by the folks over at Bear Creek Arsenal in Sanford, North Carolina. If you're not familiar with Bear Creek Arsenal or the work that we've done with them in the past, the collaborations that we've had, I would invite you to go check out that playlist on our channel. But if you have seen them and you like this kind of content and you're excited to see what I have to say about this new offering that they've sent to us here, do me a favor. At the end of the video, just go down and read the pinned comment for me. It would mean a lot to me. I would appreciate it, and I would consider it a personal favor. Moving on into the content that we have for you here today. This is the 16-inch carbine version of the Bear Creek BC-9. This is a 9mm bufferless carbine. What does that mean? Well, at first glance, to somebody that doesn't understand the concept of how these things work, this might just kind of sort of look like another black gun AR style weapon. It's really a lot more to it than just that. Without getting too deep into the weeds on how things operate, your traditional ARs have a buffer tube on the back of them that is full of a big heavy spring and a buffer device, which the bolt rides on when the weapon is cycling. Now, this one, as I mentioned, is bufferless, and what that means is that the entirety of the operating mechanism is housed within the upper receiver portion of the firearm. Now, you'll notice it has this little block here on the back of it. It's just a touch longer than what you would typically see on the back of an AR, and that is there to accommodate the guide rod and the little recoil springs that are attached to the shorter bolt on this weapon. Why would you want that, you might ask? Well, we're going to get into that in just a second, but since I am now handling this here in front of the camera for you, I always like to say this. It really bothers the heck out of a couple of you, but for that, I'm not sorry. And that is that before we handle weapons in here in the studio environment, I always double check them, triple check them to make sure that they're safe and empty before we do that, so that there's not any accidents that are incurred unintentionally. Moving right along. The benefit to the bufferless design that we have with this particular platform is that you can attach a folding stock. The one on this is made by CNC Warrior. I think it's the SAM 7K model. So you would see this like on some of the cranks and stuff that are out there. But overall, it looks really cool on this platform. But more importantly, it's nice and thin and solid and robust. And as you saw there, it's real easy to deploy. It's not quite as easy to fold this one as some folding stocks, but typically you're not in a big hurry to fold them. It's deploying them for use that actually takes precedence of time. But you can still fold it up pretty easily by just putting the pistol grip on a hard surface and pushing down evenly on the top of it, and then it'll swing closed. And as you can see there, the overall profile seems to be nice and compact. Now, the magazine that's sticking out of this is a Glock style magazine. I'm sure most of you probably recognize that right out of the gate. This weapon is designed to be compatible with 9mm Glock magazines. Now, why would that be important? Well, there are several weapons on the market now, handgun types that utilize Glock magazines, as well as there are probably millions at this point of actual Glock pistols out there in circulation as well. So having a 9mm pistol caliber carbine that is that is set up to take a Glock style magazine is really convenient if you carry a pistol that is compatible with a Glock magazine also. The particular magazine that is sticking out of this at the moment is a standard Glock stick magazine. Those of you who know what those are know what those are. You can also put a pistol grip length magazine like this one here, which is a Glock 17 magazine with a 2-round extension. And you'll see there that a little bit shorter than the pistol grip on this offering. I'll go ahead and put the longer one back in because it lets it stand up a little better. Aside from that, the controls on the weapon are very similar to those of an AR, with one notable exception, and that would be the charging handle. Rather than having a rear charging handle like what a typical AR has, you have this side charging handle, which on this particular one is set up for the right hand side. Now, while these are not completely ambidextrous, they are also available with the charging handle on the left hand side of the receiver for those of you that would like to be able to work the bolt with your left hand. As I mentioned before, the rifle has a 16-inch barrel. It also has a flash hider on the end of that, which adds a little bit of length to it, but not anything real bad. And with that 16-inch barrel, it comes in at a slightly larger overall package in the folded configuration than a Kel-Tec Sub 2000. The Kel-Tec Sub 2000 splits right in half and makes a lot more compact of a package. However, this one is actually still pretty good. For those of you that saw this video that I did on this green AR pistol bag, that bag is made for an AR style pistol. This actually fits in it just perfect with the stock in the folded position, and it gives you a convenient way to carry it there on your back. I'll show you a close-up here in a second of this cool grip that they have on here. It's Magpul-esque. It's almost like the Magpul grip, slightly rubberized, and it has a neat impression of an American flag there on the side of it. For the testing that we did with this rifle, I equipped it with a Gideon Advocate Prism Scope, which we also have a review on there, and it's something that I am quite fond of. I chose not to go with a set of backup iron sights for this setup simply because the Prism Scope gives you the ability to utilize your optic even if the batteries are dead on it, which I think is a nice feature. The remainder of the controls on the platform, the mag release, the bolt release, and the safety selector, are all AR pattern and located where God intended them. Now, on the note of the bolt release, this platform does not have a last round bolt hold open. That's probably pretty close to my biggest gripe about it. And I would imagine that has something to do with the overall cost of production. Now, as a side note, while we're talking about the cost of this thing, the MSRP I think is $564, but I looked over on their website earlier and they were available for significantly less than that right now on sale. And I've never actually seen them at full MSRP on Bear Creek's website. Well, we've talked about it a little bit now, and I'm sure some of you are excited to know how it performed. Real quick on that, quite often I have found that regardless of what I choose to do in the filming of a video, whether I do an extended range session or I barely show any of it, or I try to aim somewhere down the middle of the road, it doesn't matter. There's going to be people in the comment section that are unhappy with the way that I did it. It's either you spent too much time at the range, or you didn't show us enough, or 3 rounds does not a review make. Yeah, that guy. I shot this thing a bunch. I put just over 270 rounds through it, and all but one string of those wound up on camera. That goes back to that little comment that I made there at the beginning. So I'm going to include now a very lengthy and drawn out range portion to this video. I have notes written down here for commentary on each different part of that. If you don't want to watch the whole range session of it, just scrub forward on the video until you see me wearing that white t-shirt up there, and then you can hit the play button and you won't have to sit through 20 minutes of shooting content. For the rest of you, let's get over to the range. Oh man, if you're still watching after that, I admire your commitment to the cause. That first magazine through this thing was really rough. But please allow me to explain a couple of things. For starters, we received this rifle as a brand new rifle, never been fired before from Bear Creek Arsenal. It was completely dry when we received it, and it had a tag hanging up here on the forend that said something to the effect of please clean and lubricate this weapon before firing. With that in mind, they even included a little bottle of Shooter's Choice CLP with which to accomplish that. Now, I, being a professional, chose not to do that, and rather I just squirted a bunch of lube down into the bolt, worked it back and forth a few times, and let nature take its course. The issues that we had with that first magazine, which was a factory Glock magazine, in fact, it was this very one, and it was loaded with Soleil and below 115 grain full metal jackets, cheap target ammunition that I personally think is just a little bit anemic. The issue that we were having is I'd fire a round, the rifle would cycle, and then I'd go to fire the next round and the trigger would be dead. And what I think was happening was that the bolt was not cycling back far enough to reset the trigger. It was frustrating for a moment, but I decided before I do anything else, let me switch ammunition and see if the problem goes away with the ammunition. So I switched to a different type, which was uh, 10 rounds of Monarch steel cased full metal jacket ammunition. And as you can see there, they went off without a hitch. So then I loaded that same magazine up again with 10 more rounds of the S&B stuff. And as you saw there, by the time we had a couple of magazines through the rifle, that short reset or that short stroke of the bolt had gone away and the trigger was resetting as it was supposed to. We did not experience that again in the next 250 plus rounds. So then I moved on to a KCI stick magazine. That particular old KCI stick magazine has been with me for a long time. It has a wolf spring in it. It's been cleaned up and polished, and for the most part, it ran pretty good. That said, it's been dropped on the cement enough times now that the feed lips on that old magazine were just boogered up to the point of where they didn't hold the rounds reliably, and it was causing them to kick up too soon and jam up in the weapon. Now, to make sure that the problem was with the magazine and wasn't with the rifle, I went ahead and I loaded it up with the Kel-Tec Sub 2000 in order to see if we could replicate the issue in a different firearm.
There you go.
And as you saw there, complete with a round with a dented case, we had the same issue out of the other rifle. So I went ahead and did what needed to be done and threw that magazine away. So then I went ahead and loaded up 19 rounds of Fiocchi 115 grain full metal jackets into that same factory Glock magazine. And you'll see there that we didn't have any issues with those. Next on our list, 19 rounds of USA Ready in the same factory Glock magazine. And you may have noticed there that I was having a little bit of difficulty seating the magazine on a closed bolt. Now, remember two things. For starters, there's no last round bolt hold open on this. So when the previous magazine goes dry, the bolt goes forward. Also, remember this. This is actually a factory 17 round Glock 17 magazine. It has a Pierce 2-round extension on the bottom of it. When you load 19 rounds into this magazine, they are very tightly compressed in there. And this is not the only platform that has an issue with the magazine seating properly when it's loaded to maximum capacity. It just happened to be a thing with this, and you had to give it a good tap in order to get it to seat. Regardless, those rounds also went off without a hitch. Moving on from there, with the same magazine, we loaded it with 15 rounds of Remington UMC 115 grain full metal jackets. Those also functioned as intended. Then we moved on to a Magpul PMAG test. The first PMAG was loaded with 115 grain S&B full metal jackets. The second one was loaded with Monarch steel-cased 115 grain full metal jackets. On the paper targets there, number 4 and number 5, you'll see that we fired 17 rounds at each one of them. Moving on from there, we shot some Winchester jacketed hollow points just to test for function. And then we tried out the KCI magazine that came with the Bear Creek Grizzly, which we had issues with the Bear Creek Grizzly. In fact, this KCI magazine was the only magazine that we had any kind of issues with the Grizzly with. So we loaded it up again and fired Fiocchi rounds, and again, we didn't have any issues. All right, we're going to try that KCI magazine again. This time it's loaded with Fiocchi, and we're going to put it on paper on number 3 target. Next, I drug out an old Polymer 80 magazine and fired 14 rounds of the S&B. Polymer 80 magazine that I believe is made by the same outfit that makes the KCI magazine. I loaded it up again and fired 16 rounds of Fiocchi, finishing off those 2 boxes of shells. Finally, I loaded up all the remaining rounds that I had into 3 magazines and I ran them through the rifle. I realize the audio here is terrible, but what I was trying to explain is that it was a pretty good primer hit on that case, so it appeared to be just a bad round, not necessarily a problem with the weapon. We went ahead and put the round back in the magazine, and it went off the second time. So what does all that mean? Well, let's look back at what we had. We had some issues with our first magazine through the rifle. Whether it was that I didn't properly lubricate it, or I over lubricated it and caused some kind of hydraulic resistance, or whatever it was, there was a couple of issues with that very first magazine where the bolt wasn't traveling back far enough to fully reset the hammer. We didn't experience that again throughout the remainder of the testing, and we shot this thing quite a bit. The only other thing that I would consider to be an issue with it was that I had that one KCI stick mag, which was a very old magazine that had been beat on quite a bit, that wouldn't function properly in this rifle or in our other one. So I'm not going to hold that against the rifle. The only other thing that we had throughout all of our testing was I had that one round that did not go off, even though it had a primer strike. Now you could say, was it a light primer strike? Maybe. Was it a hard primer? Maybe. Was it just an old round? Who knows? Cycled it back through and it fired that second time. Again, that wasn't quality ammunition. This was stuff I dug up out of the bottom of my range bag to finish off, just to see how it would function through the rifle. With a quality magazine, with quality ammunition, we didn't experience any issues. Um, most manufacturers, I don't know what Bear Creek's exact policy is on it. I should probably ask them, but I didn't before I made this video, so there's that. Most manufacturers have some kind of break-in period listed in their manual saying, any irregularities experienced within the first 200 rounds or whatever should be attributed to break-in. I don't know what Bear Creek's policy is on that, and I didn't see that in the manual, so I would have to reach out to them to find out. If I do that, I'll put it in the pinned comment down below as well. On the subject of the manual that came with this thing, the manual that came with it was kind of a generic manual for an AR, and it doesn't apply directly to the bufferless system here. The takedown on this weapon is a little bit different. If you're familiar with taking down an AR-15 and you try to do this one the same way, it's not going to work. The takedown is actually pretty easy, and I'm going to show you how to do that, but just not here in this video. I'm going to do a separate video all by itself for the takedown for disassembly and cleaning of this platform. It'll be about a 5-minute video, and it'll show you how to do it. It's actually pretty easy. All in all, for what one of these things runs, you can get it probably shipped and through your FFL for around 500 bucks. I think it's a pretty solid bargain, especially when you consider that the CNC Warrior stock on the back of it there by itself is about $170 if you wanted one of those. Well, that's what I have on this thing. Now I would like to hear from you what you think about it. Do you think the BC-9 has a place in your stable? Let me know down below in the comment section. Let's keep the ball rolling on this. And don't forget to go check out Gunman66 over on YouTube. I'll put a link to his channel down in the comment section there. Kelly Steele, he's also a children's book writer. Great guy and a personal friend of mine. So check him out. And until next time, folks, take care and God bless.